Coming up on Network Africa, British Prime Minister Theresa May visits Nigeria on the second day of her trade mission to boost ties with Africa. Another European leader, Germany's Angela Merkel, visits Senegal, seeking to also boost trade ties with Africa. And 5 Kenyan soldiers die in the coastal county of Lamu after the vehicle they were traveling in hit an improvised explosive device. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. We begin here in Nigeria, where the British Prime Minister, Theresa May, has arrived in Nigeria as part of her trade mission to boost ties with Africa after Brexit. Mrs. May met with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja, where they signed agreements in areas of defense and security partnership, as well as a comprehensive agreement on economic development. Shortly after her meeting with the president, the Prime Minister left the villa for Lagos State to meet with victims of modern slavery. Mrs. May's three-day trip to Africa is aimed at deepening economic and trade ties with growing African economies ahead of Britain leaving the EU in 2019. Let's get more on this from a lecturer at the University of Lagos and an African affairs analyst, Mr. Okwe Okwala. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Great. What, in your opinion, is the significance of Theresa May's visit?
Well, it's significant in many ways. One, Nigeria is a traditional partner to UK, having historical ties that dates back to colonial days. And again, Nigeria is one of the is the second largest economy, or the largest economy in Africa, and an emerging economy with a huge potential. So, Theresa May, post-Brexit, will be needing Nigeria, and Nigeria also needs Britain. So, I think this visit is to cement that relationship, especially as Britain is planning to leave the European Union. So post-Brexit deals, especially in growing African countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, will be very, very important to Britain.
The Prime Minister is also in Lagos to pledge support to victims of modern slavery. According to her, the UK is a world leader in trying to end modern slavery. Isn't this hypocritical considering the UK's historic ties to Africa?
Well, I think every nation, they have their past. Yes, and the past, Britain, the behavior of Britain with respect to Africa may not be something to write home about. In that they supported the apartheid regime, they supported even the slavery in those days. But, over time, of course, modern Britain has evolved, and they have pledged themselves to restoring the dignity of man. They've pledged themselves to fighting second slavery and oppression everywhere. Yeah, they may not be perfect in doing that, but I don't think we should hold them back for what they did. Everybody has their past. In those days, there was a time of the time of the survival of the fittest, and then civilization kept growing and all that. So it's not everything that people did, a nation or a set of people did at the earlier part of their civilization that you hold them. Oh, because you did this, you cannot be talking about modern slavery. We will hold them to their words, and if they do something that is not consistent with what they promise, then we can also have the liberty to attack them,
So Mrs. May was in South Africa yesterday, and after leaving Nigeria, she'll visit Kenya in a bid to boost trade ties with Africa. How easy will it be for her to secure this relationship, considering Africa's growing ties with China and its established relationships with the United States?
Well, he wants to challenge the dominance of China, and also the position of US as the leading G7 investor in Africa. And he can try. Although I would think that China in particular has an advantage, not only because they may likely present better deals, but by the nature of African leaders, they will prefer to deal with those who may have something for them and deals that are on the table, and then have some deals under the table. Traditionally, the European countries, the Western countries, they are more reluctant to deals under the table. So that may be, but having said that, they also have a lot of value to offer, especially in the service area, especially in the Britain is the lead even now. I mean, is the service area and the services. Britain is one of the leading countries in the service area, and they also have a lot of experience, and they're even in manufacturing. So Britain has a lot to offer Africa, and but then of course they will meet challenges from such traditional allies emerging like China, like US, and Nigeria is second largest trading partner to Britain in Africa, and also, they want to shift. Their major assistance to Nigeria has been they want to shift from short-term poverty reduction to long-term economic and security, helping Nigeria to meet long-term and economic and security challenges. So I think, in as much as China is there, very strong, US is there, but UK can challenge. For moving from second position to first position, it requires a lot of deals, a lot of hard work, but then it can be done.
Okay. So some analysts have criticized the UK for being too focused on aid rather than trade. So it will be interesting to see how this will shift into seeing Africa as an equal partner at the table. Just how beneficial can this relationship be for the continent?
Well, at the time UK was offering aid is important for Africa. But then that should be a first step. The second step is having a sustainable economic relationship that benefits both parties. But then, but if you look at, when we talk about economic relationship, for instance, in Nigeria, the UK largest export to Nigeria is a refined petroleum product. And what is its largest import? Crude oil. So you see, until we have not been able to add so much value that we can offer UK in a competitive way, except those primary products, and we have not added value to all what nature has given us. And that's what they take it to them, they take it, add value to them, and bring back to us. It's also up to Nigeria and Africa to also seek to add value. Because no matter how much Britain wants to do deals with Nigeria, it's only you have to be competitive for them to prefer dealing with you, to dealing with US, to dealing with China, to dealing with Indonesia, or any of the other countries. As much as we blame them for probably not having so much deals, apart from primary products, agricultural products, crude oil, natural resources, we must learn to add values that we compete at the world stage, so that those who are our friends will also buy from us at a better terms, or even equal terms from what others are offering. Until we do that, we may not be blaming our partners for not doing business with us.
Thank you so much, lecturer at the University of Lagos and an African Affairs analyst, Mr. Oki Okpala, for giving us your thoughts on that.
Thank you.